like how much water you're willing to give to your people. Like, like none.
Pac-Man doesn't have water.
I swear to fucking God. 4 episodes now.
Rocket League doesn't have water.
I mean, there's probably a map with water.
Actually, if you like break the game and you like go outside like the area that you're supposed to be locked into, there is water.
I refuse to believe that they put water in that they didn't want anyone to see.
Well, it's like if you get from like the correct angle in like one of the corners of the map, I bet you can see the water.
Huh. Anyway, let's see if Yuji has any good stories. It's a fairly standard request, but I'm not sure where to go with this. What sort of story?
It's hot, so a nice and cool story.
Hold on, there's a rich cracker in my mouth.
God damn it, Pack.
I was about to try to check the underwater category on Steam to see if I could find anything in there, but then I realized the flaw with that plan.
I don't see any flaws with that. A cool story, That's a bit tricky. When you're looking for a chilling tale, I think of ghost stories. I think ghost stories are the standard choice. Fortunately, I'm not lacking in that department. A legacy of the time I spent at my old school. Alright then. This is something I've heard from an upperclassman at my previous school. Oh, we're telling stories. Oh, water confirmed.
Ah, water! Wait, we already knew that because of the koi pond, though.
Water and the ocean!
Yeah, I forgot about that again.
Why do you keep forgetting about the fucking ocean?
Because we don't see it often.
We see it all the time!
I'm also not paying much attention to that
Anyway.
right now. Look.
This is the story of an American soldier who found himself in a southern island in the night of a flooded with lukewarm rain. The soldier was making his way through the darkened jungle amid a pelting downpour, following the native trail with 8 companions. Their objective was enemy anti-aircraft position. Is this like fucking Vietnam?
What is this? Didn't he say it was a story told by upperclassmen?
Yeah.
He was told this by an upperclassman. That doesn't mean his upperclassman was the soldier.
His upperclassman was in Nam.
I mean, I can tell you that I know a Marine sniper who has 300 confirmed kills. That doesn't make it true.
God damn. Kevin, make that whole story scroll past the screen.
Please don't.
No, do it. The rain had been falling for 2 days straight, leaving the ground swampy and swampy as a paddy field. With the moon hidden by thick storm clouds, the soldiers couldn't see the back of the comrade walking in 2 or 3 meters ahead. The squad nerves were already worn out by the suggestive darkness of the night jungle, but the relentless rain piercing through the tree canopy was slowly sapping their endurance as well. On top of it all, the rough map they'd received from the scouts was vague to the point of uselessness. Good for little, but further fueling their anxiety. As the squad trudged on the virtual crawl through the knee-deep mud, it was inevitable for their formation grew increasingly loose. So the American soldier, a sniper, bringing up the rear of the column, was desperately struggling to avoid getting separated from the rest of his unit. Eventually, he heard a distinctive clacking sound from the distance in front of him, rising above the sound of the rain. He recognized the sound as a castanets of, the platoon leader carried out as a means to communicate at night, or in poor visibility conditions where signals were impractical, hand signals. The number of times he clacked indicated an order to halt on spot. The man dropped on one knee in muddy water, grasped his rifle to his breast, and removed the lens cap from his scope, shielding it from the rain. An enemy ambush. Lying flat on the spot, the man passed his strong eye against the gun's sight. The back of the soldier in front of him came into view. No shots had been fired as of yet. Earlier reconnaissance had indicated that there were barely any enemy troops or armed guerrillas in the area. If there were enemies here, the odds are that they would be scouts, and most likely a fairly small group. As the man rested his chin in the muddy water to watch the jungle ahead, he heard the first sounds of gunfire. The enemy wasn't even 30 meters away from his squad. They'd practically bumped into each other.
Did someone say
Up, flashing fucking epilepsy warning. Slick lines of fire from the enemy position, just as he'd thought. It seemed like a small scouting group. Judging from the reckless way they opened fire blindly, they were probably poorly trained guerrillas who'd panicked after encountering the enemy under these unusual conditions. Removing his gaze from the scope, the man grasped his weapon and pulled back on the bolt handle, pushing a 7.62mm bullet into the exposed chamber. He quickly returned his dominant eye to the eye cup of his sight. The muzzle flashes visible through the scope burned white and after images into his pupil. Fully dilated to the point, after being on his long walk in the darkness, he couldn't see the enemy. Aiming on intuition, he squeezed the trigger. A momentary explosion of light from his gun, and he heard the enemy's grunt from a bush some 30 meters away. A hit. The man took his rifle in both hands and began to crawl on his elbows and knees in search of the new firing position. After moving about 10 meters to his left, he discovered a convenient foxhole that would serve his purpose nicely. He swung his body down the hole and was found half full of stagnant water, just as he'd expected, but the fact barely registered in his mind. More importantly, firing from this position, he could be like this. He could snipe while hidden for a time. Sunk to his waist in muddy water, he mechanically pulled his rifle's bolt, and squeezed the trigger.
He's telling this story to a 15-year-old girl.
He himself is only 17.
Yes, but the point is, why the fuck is he telling this story to a 15-year-old girl?
It's the first story that popped into his mind? I don't know. All of a sudden, he heard a voice from the next foxhole. Since when had it been occupied? Who wants to voice this random dude?
Hey, give me grenade.
Give me a grenade.
Give me grenade. I'm not enemy. Let's kill those Russians.
In response, the man took an M67 grenade from the belt slung around his waist and held it out, the safety pin still fixed in place. A white hand reached out from the nearby trench and received it.
Thank you.
The man was certain he heard those words. But no matter how long he waited, his comrade didn't throw the grenade. Maybe the safety pin bent somehow and couldn't get it loose. Hey, you okay? As the man was speaking those words, he started to move his head to look above the edge of the encampment. At that moment, the grenade exploded next to the foxhole. Rip. Gah! An explosion at point-blank range isn't something you hear. The overpowering waves of sound aren't recognized by your ears as noise. The mass of burning air struck the man like a wall, knocking the helmet off his head and thrusting his body backwards into the muddy pool. His mouth, thrown open by the explosion, was instantly filled with filthy water. As the man desperately tried to spit it out, he realized his tongue had been knocked back into his throat. He couldn't breathe. Quickly thrusting his hands into his mouth, the man peeled his tongue free with his fingers and powerfully vomited out the water together with the breath he had gathered in his lungs. So he survived that fucking explosion that close to him?
It was in the foxhole next to him, not in his own foxhole.
Ah. How did that guy he gave it to fuck it up that bad?
I don't even fucking know, man.
His throat was burning from inhaling the explosion's scorching wind, so he couldn't stop the tears that were pouring down his face. His head felt like it'd taken a direct hit from a fastball made of concrete. I don't think it matters what the fastball is made of at that point.
I don't know. If you had to get hit by a fastball made of feathers or a fastball made of concrete, what would you prefer?
I don't think the ball would stay together if it was made of feathers.
Not with that attitude.
That's how fast it's going.
That's just what they'd want you to think.
Yeah. Hey, are you alright? Get it together. Oh, you know, I'm good. Just exploded a little. Just a minor case of explosion. I've had worse.
One. Just a little explosion.
Curled up in the muddy water, his head...
Did someone say water?
Well, water is confirmed in this game. With his head in his hands, the man heard a voice of a comrade. Oh, so that wasn't his voice. At least his eardrums hadn't shattered. He felt himself being dragged out of the foxhole by both arms. Who wants to voice this guy?
We've got
Alex,
to move. Temper
Alex,
withdrawal.
Alex, no,
Can
Alex.
you walk?
God damn
Nope,
it.
too late. He doesn't want me to. I won't.
No,
Let's see how
Alex.
fucking it is.
No, Alex. Mandel can go
No.
fuck himself. Read the line.
No?
No, Mandel, go fuck yourself. So Alex can read this line.
Not right now. Later.
It took all the man's effort to nod his head. He couldn't see, and his ears were barely functional. His throat was on fire. He couldn't even speak. The man began to run his hands across the ground in a panic. His comrade knew what he was looking for. The man felt a rifle pressing into his hands. Reassured by the familiar feel of his weapon, the man slung it onto his shoulder, his hand still clutching the ground. He fled that place at a crawl. Oh, stars. Have 30 minutes pass? 30, yeah. When he finally came to himself, the rain had, ironically enough, finally stopped. His vision
No water.
His vision had largely recovered, and when looking around, he saw his companions, all just as filthy with mud. Ooh, Alex, you can voice this guy.
Hey, Shorty, you still alive?
God damn it.
Did it say it was a guy? So.
It did not specify.
It did. Oh.
The sniper
Never mind.
Yep.
It's like Mike Tyson.
It belonged to a black man who joined the army at the same time as him.
It's Mike Tyson.
You gotta have the lisp with it then. If
Hey,
that voice is
Shorty, you still alive?
They'd been in the same squad in their training days as well. And the black man was his closest friend in the platoon. His greeting was casual as always. Give me a break. The man re-shouldered his beloved rifle and told his friend about the hand grenade incident. The voice came from the next foxhole. The grenade he handed over in response. Moments later, the explosion. The man angrily spat out the details of his brush with death through another stupidity. The black man listened in silence. When the story was over, a brief pause. He finally spoke.
Huh? What the hell are you talking about, Shorty?
The black man said his story was impossible. Come to think of it, of course it was. The man was the unit's birdman on the rear ground at the end of the line. Usually, the birdmans marched 10, 20 meters behind the squad. There was no way an ally could have been encamped only 2 or 3 meters from his position. Even considering his movements to change his firing position, he couldn't have met anyone until the unit broke into a retreat.
I mean, let's say you're right and some jackass dropped a grenade in his own foxhole. Okay, who was that?
When the man looked around his surroundings, all 8 of the squad members were accounted for. A few were lightly wounded, but clearly none of them had been on the receiving end of a grenade blast. So, who the hell... Oh, wait, this is you.
So who the hell did you give that grenade to?
In response to his friend's words, a shiver ran down the man's spine. After rejoining the main force and completing his report, the man told his story to a grizzled veteran. The sergeant major had an explanation of sorts for him.
That place is around
Different guy.
Are you saying this guy can't also have a lisp? How do we know it's a guy?
Well,
Maybe
you have
also
the
it's a
exact
female.
same voice. You know, last time you said that, it ended up being a fucking big black dude. Just read the fucking line.
The place is right around the site of an old battle where many Americans died.
Blood.
Oh shit.
Among them were many who had been wounded, many wounded who had been cruelly, slowly butchered by the guerrillas with spears and bayonets. And some of them reached for their grenades but some of them had to reach the grenades on their waist and pulled the pin rather than being tortured to death. Spooky.
That's the reaction I was expecting when we came back to this.
So in the end, who had taken the man's grenade? Perhaps a lingering spirit still clinging to the battlefield even in death? Or so the story went. What do you think? Get a bit of a chill?
What the heck?
All that progress you had made with her becoming comfortable with you just went right the fuck out the door. I hope you understand that, Yuji. You just killed every last iota of it.
What the heck's wrong with you? I peed myself a little bit.
Oh, sorry about that. Forget it. We just spent the last, 15 minutes telling a story.
As if I could. I'm gonna cry on the way to the bathroom tonight.
My bad.
Next time you tell me a story, make it a slightly happier one, okay?
Gotta find the most fucked up story we can think of next time. Huh? Yeah, got it. Makina throws her empty juice box in the trash can and starts to patter away. As usual, she leaves as quickly as she arrives.
Did that just fucking happen? Did we just go on that tangent with that story for a good 5 minutes?
Apparently
What the
so.
fuck even is this?
But this time, after walking about 3 meters, Makina stops and turns back to me.
Oh hey, Oni-chan.
That's the closest to a full body shot we've ever got of her. What?
Do you think there's life after death?
That's, kind of a random question.
You're a random question.
Life after death, huh? Can't say for sure since I've never experienced it firsthand. If you believe in it, then maybe there is. In the army, there's a popular story about an afterlife exclusively for soldiers. Valhalla. It's a story you'll find the armed forces of pretty much any. It's a story you'll find in the armed forces of pretty much any country, in a pretty much identical form.
I'm here. My headphones definitely didn't die on me.
Of course they didn't. If you believe an afterlife is waiting for you, it will be. I'm sure it's something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
So
See
does she
you
just
later.
always wear mismatched socks?
Yeah. She's one of them.
With those words, she runs off, this time without looking back. I don't think that I said anything particularly interesting, but
You said horrifying things.
hearing the words of thanks naturally lightens my mood anyway. Drinking up the remaining oolong tea with a gulp, I throw the empty cup in the trash bin and walk towards the classroom for a 6th period class.
I'll show you a period class.
Alright, well, that's the session.
Yeah, that's
Kevin,
a
this is
session.
the longest session to date.
Ah, well, look at that productivity.
Really? It
That'll-
felt like it was just as long as the others.